Okay, now it's time to get to the fun part, the bun. So I section the bun in about 5 different pieces. I say about 5 because on thicker wigs, sometimes I use 6. You can watch my video personalizing classic style Cindy to see an example of the 6 section bun. But today we're going to keep it simple and do the 5 sections. Most importantly is the first section in the front, which is going to be our center curl and our focus point for the entire style. So I evenly distribute the hair kind of like a flower from the center so that I kind of have an even amount of thickness. And I start to separate the hair. First I do this piece that's going to be my center curl, and then I get that back piece, which is going to be kind of a mirror image of the curl in the front. Then I kind of check these side pieces, make sure I have equal density. I don't want one side to be heavier than the other because I don't want the bun to lean to one side, and I also don't want the wig to be heavier to one side. I do take quite a bit of time to make sure that these sections are proportionate because this is really crucial to the balance of the overall bun. So then on the side that's closest to me, there's going to be 2 separate wave sections here that will go over the top. Then on this side, I usually take this in one big section, but if it's a very dense wig, sometimes I split this in 2. For today, we're just going to work with it as one section, and that's what I prefer to do. So here's my 2 barrel curls in the front and back, my 2 waves on one side and one on the other. Kind of looks like a starfish. So this bun goes together and kind of fits in like puzzle pieces. So this first curl is the most important because it's our focal point and everything else is going to form around it. I pull out this little skinny piece and pin it to the side. We're going to incorporate that last. Just make sure it's pinned out of the way. I'm applying a little bit of that powder play at the root of my barrel curl, and I put a little bit of it right where I'm going to pin it as well, giving it some teasing here. And then I'm going to find that sweet spot where I need that bobby pin to sit in order for my curl to be facing center and forward. As I place this curl, I'm keeping in mind how much space I have in between the back of my bang section and the start of my bun. It just depends on how far forward you like your bun. I placed my ponytail already pretty far forward, so I push this curl back as close to my ponytail holder as possible. That way I have a little bit of space there if somebody wants to put a headband, but I do shift my bun fairly far forward because I want the weight of this wig to be centered on top of the person's head when they wear it, so they don't have to deal with the wig sliding back as much as it would if the ponytail was sitting further back. So just sculpting my curl here. I'm not going to spend too much time perfecting it at this point. Right now, I just want to get all these sections to come together and build my puzzle, and then I'll go in and refine and do all that detail work. I'm also not going to lock and pin this curl down until I have all of my other pieces placed, just in case I need to shift something. Just moving this little piece out of the way. Don't let this little piece get lost. We're going to use it later. Then I move into this side section here. The way you pin the base of this side section is really important because it's going to frame that center curl. So really get a feel for where you need to place those bobby pins at the base of your curl so that it hugs the front center curl really nicely. I put a little bit of that powder play on both sides of the section. I like to use that nice rubbery powder right there where I'm placing my bobby pin so I don't get a lot of slippage. I think the key with this style on every step is that you want your bobby pins to be rock solid. So the further away you place the pins from the base of the ponytail, the wider your bun's gonna get. So I'm being extra careful to make sure I'm shoving these pins as close to the base of the ponytail as possible. We have a ton of bobby pins right underneath that from our perimeter section, so we've got a lot to grab into and lock onto. So I really have to muscle those pins in there. I am having a lot of resistance when I push those pins in, and then sometimes they want to start to force back out. But just really be persistent with it and push into those pins that are underneath because that's going to give you a lot of extra stability once they lock together. And if you have another pin that's kind of sticking out or is too far out from the base and isn't really doing anything, don't hesitate to pull it out if it's not doing anything helpful. If it's getting in your way, remove it and replace it. Going in with a little bit more powder so I can get some really nice hold and some really good fluffy teasing. You'll see now as I start to smooth and shape this that this is going to go into place pretty easily because our cut and the way the wig is set is made to support this style. So this curl is going to frame our center curl and those ends kind of sweep back. So there is going to be a nice soft S shaping here. But I'm not going to spend too much time refining it yet. I'm going to get the rough shape in place and then move on to the next piece of my puzzle. Then once everything's in place, I'll go in and really spend the time to detail and smooth everything out and reinforce those waves with some U-pins. For now, I'm just focusing on how this piece is framing that center curl and tweaking anything that may need to be moved in the very front before I move on to my next piece. For now, I'm going to leave out that piece behind the curl we were just working on and focus on the curl that's going to go center in the back. This is another barrel curl, and to be honest with you, this curl gets mostly covered up by our other wavy pieces, but it's important because it's going to determine how low our bun comes down in the back and kind of acts as the core of our style, just as the one in the front does. So the smoothness and perfection of this curl is not quite so important. It's more so making sure that we've got some good stability and volume and paying attention to the placement of the curl. So the barrel curl should face with the opening towards the back. So this bottom piece to the viewer's right is going to come next. This is going to sweep upward towards the center. The placement of the ends of this curl are somewhat important because this helps to establish the volume in the center of our bun. But for now, we're going to pin this base, tease it, and sweep it upwards and start to form our wave. That wave is kind of going to hug that previous section to our right and flow together while it marries over our barrel curl in the back to connect the piece we're going to do on the other side. That may sound a little bit confusing, but it's going to make a lot of sense once we get our last piece up. But see how this wave is fitting nicely into our previous section on the right? That's what we want. We want it to look a little bit separate so it's not all one piece, but we want it to flow in the same direction. And leave those ends free for now so that we can use that to build our volume later. Now this is our one big side piece that's going to form one big wave. As I mentioned earlier, if your ponytail is particularly dense and you're doing a bigger bun, you can absolutely split this into two pieces, but I kind of like the look of it better when it's all one piece. So this piece is going to frame our center curl in the front on the opposite side that we've already done, and it's also going to marry in with that wave that sweeps up the back. So I'm pinning the base here so that it can easily be pivoted towards the front and towards the back, and giving myself a good amount of teasing here so this section's very pliable and shapeable. So the section's coming up there over the center curl, overlapping the other side, and then the ends are going to sweep back. So I'm just carefully fanning and spreading this section out so that we can maintain that nice round shape of our bun and get that coverage that we need to get the wave draping all the way from front to back. So now that we've kind of got the rough draft of all of our puzzle pieces together, I'm ready to go in and start detailing. I'm using these U-pins along the circumference of my bun. That kind of helps serve as a connect the dots guide to make sure that I have a nice round shape all the way around. And it also helps to get my little soft S waves going in each petal of this bun. So I just slightly lean those pins in the direction that I want my wave to go. I am going to eventually be closing that little hole up, and I'm going to show you how to pin that closed, but I'm just working on detailing and smoothing out the surface of this bun. I usually don't show too much of this footage, so I wanted to just let you guys see a little bit of how I get my bun polished. I do spend a lot more time than you see here in these videos, but that's only because I don't want to bore you. I'm just picking at every single little hair and getting it to lay exactly where I want. Then before I'm ready to pin, I'm going to do my whole deal with the steaming and spraying several times so that I've got a really nice strong structure. I'm placing this curl in the front here with that one little strand of hair that we left out. And this piece just helps to marry in the direction of that side piece and the other side piece. And you want to pay attention because you've got a lot of different directions forming around that center curl. So just be mindful as you place that center piece. So now pinning this bun closed, that back section and that section on the left, the ends are gonna act like stand-up curls, and we're gonna pin those ends like stand-up curls to the base of our ponytail. That way our sections are secure, but they also have volume and we're not flattening the top of our bun. Once those ends are pinned down, I'm using these U-pins and kind of tightening up the waves of those two pieces so that they hug each other nicely. I still want to see some separation between the sections, but I want the wave to look like it belongs together. So now I'm locking in a couple more bobby pins along the front here, just wiggling them in underneath so that they're hidden, and then using some U-pins to cover them up on the outside where I'll steam them, and then I'll be putting my net on shortly. I leave all these pins in place as I slide this net over. That way I don't have too much shifting as I place my hairnet, and then I pull those pins out as I go. I start to pull this net taut and kind of take out pins and put them back in after I pulled the net snug. I'm using the tension from the net to reinforce that round shape around the perimeter of my bun. I cinch the net together in the back and hold it in place with a U-pin, and then I go back in the front and shift everything and make sure that it's sitting where I need it to be. I'm just trimming off that excess net here, but before I lock it down with bobby pins, I'm using pins and U-pins to shape the rest of this bun, get that net tucked in really neatly and nicely so it doesn't look messy. I loop a bobby pin through that loose hairnet in the back and tuck it up underneath my wig in the back. I place some additional pins around the underside of my bun on the sides and front, but most of the security of the net is going to be in those back pins. Then once I have the net all tucked in, I start to go in and lift that top piece of my bun to make sure that I didn't squish it down and lose volume. Going back in with some U-pins to make sure I didn't lose definition anywhere. Just checking for balance and finding any spots that could use a little bit of touching up through the net, but I think our shape looks pretty solid.